Fact is, how I have talked to America is nothing of having America as actual address. Maybe at some point that was the address. However, I'm the one that wanted to preserve its institutional format, and I'm going to ignore what these people are speaking in some specific terms, obviously. I'm just going to focus on the interface of it, as I'm going to call it even inheritance, my inheritance, because I would have right to call that my inheritance, because I'm the one speaking here of Star Trek on personal levels. I'm here speaking of heritage of Nikola Tesla on personal levels, with having what to say actually out of it, not just to talk about family blood relationships, but I'm actually referencing to the work while I am enclosing my work, and that is when the weight of the heritage is, and that deserves the meaning of heritage, and that is how historic heritage works when you make reference to it in context of your own elaborations, or why would you bother mentioning it exactly? It is going to be your tale. Is it going to be your tale on your dress code exactly? Tale to what dress? To what work? Or it doesn't matter to you anymore? Clearly, it doesn't. You're just walking your tails like it means nothing, but then it belongs to you. The tale is historic heritage of the previous times. The body of the present times would be worth that tale because you bring the context. If you cannot bring heritage in a context, you are not bringing the heritage. And then it is not a tale because it does not have significance. In order to be a tale or telling that would matter, you need to verify it, to value it with your presence, with the work you deliver. So I'm going to notice symbol houses are passive houses to the extent that are not bringing the order as matter of active house. Even institutions we are going to notice now within the historic heritage formulation or formation will need to be active, will need to be strong in any new generation, in any new time, and if it is not, then you have passive houses. And that's the best way how to describe it. Instead to beat around these institutions, I should just elegantly and with dignity say they are not at the moment active houses, but that are they are the houses of my historic heritage. How I know? Because I am good in metaphysics, because I exist on the levels on which historic heritage exists, because it is part of my consciousness, part of my senses, part of my identity, part of my existence. If sense means anything, then in this case scenario it works. I have not been using any instructions, any book, any reference, couple of legends certainly, couple of indicators in form of the entire music and movie industry, but then would you be really entitled to that much coverage for nothing? Would that not be solely just enough proof already of what are my real positions here? And yet, how far many of you have been found yet suspecting and denying my relevance and competence? How many of you still think that I am fake or that I am a replica? It reminds me of one of the movies being made as a parody using the character called Mr. Bean, very convenient expression by the way, beating up one of the two identical queens and he was ending up to beat the wrong one. So there were two queens on the stage, the real one and the wrong one. The fake one passed away now. I have chosen to appreciate her age. I have chosen to respect her service to her country. But you, do you know which one is which? What I want to say, are you sure that I am the fake one? Well, you have to have some parameters and indicators before you judge people like that. You should know how to judge people. You have to know how to judge history. You have to know how to judge reincarnation. You have to know by now. Clearly, people of this planet have no idea because it's not part of the general culture. It is part of culture of Tibet. It is part of culture of India, most probably even of China, but certainly not part of mainstream culture. So how you would know who is the real queen and who is the fake queen? How you would know? Okay, let's use logic and reason. If there is nothing else left, what more of proof you really need? The best way to think of this is to make the steps properly. What happens when new monarch get elected? I mean, not from the same house, but from different house, because this is a situation where you have now active monarch from different house. I'm also claiming the House of England, and I declare that your King Charles is not active monarch and does not have right to claim monarchy of England anymore. That is what you will need to acknowledge in America as well. And I can imagine that you are holding to the previous monarchy because you are related to previous monarchy. We are talking about hundreds of years. We are talking about 500 years under Elizabeth and 2 millenniums of Alexander and oligarchs of Alexander. It is quite a longer period of time for someone to fall asleep. But there were enough legends written on what happens when monarchy fall asleep. In all of these the stories, they are awakened in all of the same positions. In the real story, nothing is exactly like that. Usually would come new princess or something. In this case scenario, we talk about completely change of the entire monarchical house of Elizabeth, and for that matter Alexander, where I'm going to remind Macedonia, if they want to hold to that statue of Alexander they recently positioned, they will need to bring full history forward of Macedonia, or that statue is not going to be worth anything. Not being exactly principal monarchy is not end of the world, so do not act as someone killed you or you're a dead person or something. It's not life or death position. It is who is to behold the office and speak to people. It should not be that much of a big deal. You're making it more harder than it should be. Therefore, question for humanity today, who is the active monarch house? That somehow also delivers what was very logical to be also noticed, that monarchy is actually planetary and everything else is just pretend. I mean, it is not pretend, but it is the second page of the book. National monarchy, national perspective, that is the second page. Where is the first page? Where is that disappeared? In England, yes, it disappeared in England. Why England was never in capacity to talk about Earth? Because England never happened as Earth, and that England doesn't deliver the planetary consciousness, therefore, neither it can declare its chair as of planetary. But there is something else. There is something underneath which I have shown with my book, and that is that we have here historic progression. We have that regional movement in all of the times, and when the situation went in England, something switched at that point. We have the switching momentum going on here. We have at some point history becoming fake, and that is what today will need to be amended. Main critique to the previous protocol, from my perspective, is that they have completely abolished the reincarnation as a method upon which such protocol can only make sense and can only be maintained on its actual true nature. Otherwise, it would not be what the name suggests in most profound historical terms. So we talk here about construct of mind that exist on the parameters of constitutional, but also bring the dimension within its functioning, the way of thinking. Therefore, reincarnation is reference to certain level of performance, certain level of functioning, certain level of way of thinking, and a way of managing as well. This is political event. This is profoundly important, the most important structural political thinking. This is not something that we can set aside, that we can outside or downgrade, or this is political science. Today we would talk about it as a political science. In the previous time, it would be consciousness, on the parameters of which religions emerged and created their houses. That has been all based on following the higher consciousness, which is another event here that they are hiding such matters. And I'm very sure that they are the one following the reincarnations. I'm very sure that is exactly what Vatican is doing. But these are not any other reincarnations but monarchical reincarnations. That will need to be also enclosed. I'm enclosing also that in in today's arguing. Also, let's not forget, also Tibet is still having it. I'm going to recognize here also coexistence, very solid long-term existence of two parallel realms, formal and informal. A president of the state, or council or president of general secretary of United Nations, for example, on one side, and then goddess of absolute justice, Themis. So you have here two parallel realms, one formal, the other informal. Queen versus Mother Mary, one formal, the other informal. Formal is face, is the mask. Informal is, I wouldn't say the real body, but the other end of the projected positivism with the first mask, and then projected negativity with the second positioning. So the real body actually does not happen here. It all end up into unmasked reality. Equally as they are trying to create the mask of correctness, a formal institutionalized correctness, they're also building the mask of the other side of the coin, the dark side of the moon, where the criminals gather, where criminal has been created, and where all of the affairs coexist in the rhythmics of creating criminal societies. That is where they have implemented also Mother Mary. So we talk here about, therefore, imperial societies, about present empire and former empire in real terms, and the former empire and the entire realm of former empire being held completely into in the world of negative protocol. It becomes a negative realm, dark side of the moon, the other side of the coin. The entire hierarchy of it obviously used in such kind of negative parameters. And then this artificially created formal, rather grotesque image of either the buildings and the concept of the institutional format itself, which is completely out of touch. It is like existing in the clouds, literally, physically, not just like imagination, but actually physically, completely dysfunctional buildings being built for the sake of the theater projected out there. Nothing really detected, nothing really solved, nothing really addressed. Exists just like a costume, like a mask, like a costume. The system here exists as a costume. So in substance, when you see that you don't have actual body of actual functioning concept, of actual functioning realm. Instead, you have these two masks, one idiotically smiling, the other being the dark side of the realm, in the way how they are managing it. So here, when it comes to now dealing with Western societies, that is that issue that I here have and I need to deal with. On one side, it is that I feel as that is the inheritance, that is on what I have a civilizational right to rely from even planetary level. If this kind of level of intervention happens, that we need to deal now with 3/4 of old societies of the planet, and the last quarter is not exactly not in category of the previous. So we have basically planetary situation. We need to deal from civilizational point of view. Of course, I'm going to find the Western territories, the one that I would have complete, totally civilizational right to rely on. On the other side, I would not like them to assume that they are now overtaking this work, because they have one good solid base and presence of these prime societies, basically playing ballerina for the previous, and that is where we have to be very careful now. What means when I admit West into this? That we need to filter it, and I am the one doing the work, so I will need to filter it, and that is the best expression I can use in this case scenario. It will need to be filtered from everything that sums into that Western civilization that has been rather not selective and promoting itself on such grounds that you have approached I'm introducing. It is exactly opposite. I'm nothing of that much tolerant. I'm not building economy here. I'm building legal house. And I am saying I have right to use infrastructure of American and Western civilization for this. It will need to be understood exactly how it should be understood. This is upper level of intervention. This is not market level of intervention. It's not economy level of intervention. What is the first question today, in any time, is not question of power, before it's to be a question of sense. In one direction, not question of power, but question of sense. And it is very much typical associating with the biblical projection of the beginning. And the world started with a word, not with a thunder, with demonstration of power, but with a demonstration of reason. Now that is a vital question here. I don't find here today a question of power. I don't think that is, from my perspective, I don't have that issue. From my perspective, the question is, and that is what has been my question for 10 years already and more, to find the sense so I can direct my fire, my X-ray in correct direction. And I am searching in all of this time, all of these years, after the sense, after the reason, after the sense of matters. I'm not trying to formulate power. I'm trying to formulate sense. As I somehow felt, the power is not my problem. Maybe it comes with a birth. Maybe that sense comes with a birth. Maybe you're born with it. My question of today is question of sense.